This episode is brought to you by another instance of my brain refusing to give me peace until I worked out a puzzle it had thrown at me. So, as some of you may remember, last week we talked about the case of the AmaNdebele of South Africa and the Ashanti of Ghana, who have versions of a succession or inheritance story very similar to that of Jacob and Esau in the Bible. Well, all week, my maniac of a brain has been digging up other cases where similar stories of dramatic reversals in inheritance or birthright theft occur in African folklore or legends. So we'll stay with that topic a little bit more this week with another case of birthright theft from yet another African people. Hello, friends, and welcome to the Mythological Africans podcast, where we read and talk about stories from African mythology and folklore. I am your host, Helen Tunde. I thought about many stories of succession battles and reversals of birthright this week, but there was one in particular that I knew I'd read about a while back, but I couldn't remember the people it came from. And if you're anything like me, you know that an unsolved puzzle is like catnip to a cat, as far as my brain is concerned. I will sniff and poke and think about it until something makes sense. So there I was, sniffing and poking and wallowing in the misery of not knowing what it was exactly my brain was trying to get me to remember. And I picked up my phone to joy scroll and stumbled upon this. This is Mami Diarra, an incredibly talented 10-year-old girl from Mali. Her singing has taken social media by storm, and rightfully so. I mean, listen to that voice, the skill, the power. Anyway, listening to her got me thinking about Malian women singers and the tradition of singing in Mali and West Africa as a whole, which rests largely on the shoulders of traditional performers like griots and griots, their female counterparts. That got me thinking more about griots, or Jelimusows as they're called in Mali, and believe it or not, that slid the final piece of my puzzle into place. Now, you may know about Sundiata Keita, the legendary hero and founder of the Mali Empire. Well, his ascension to rulership, according to legend, is also based on a case of birthright theft, and two Jelimusows had something to do with this. Sundiata's mother was Sogolon Konde, whose own legend is something we've talked about before, way back when we did live storytelling and discussion sessions on Twitter Spaces. And in the legend, Sogolon, though ugly and hunchbacked, becomes the second wife of Fata Magan the Handsome, who is king of the Manding and Sundiata's father. Now, Fata Magan's first wife is Sasuma Berete, and she and Sogolon become pregnant at the same time, and naturally, the two women bear their children around the same time. So I'll just read the rest of the story from here. It is said that Fata Magan the Handsome took the Konde maiden to bed. His Berete wife became pregnant, and his Konde wife became pregnant. One day, as dawn was breaking, the Berete woman gave birth to a son. "Ha, O women," she cried out, "that which causes co-wife conflict is nothing but the co-wife's child. Go forth and tell my husband his first wife has borne him a son." The old women came up running. Alu kon kon, they replied to them, kon kon dogoso. Come, let us eat. They fixed their eyes on one another. Ah, man must swallow his saliva, and so they sat down around the food. Meanwhile, the Konde woman then bore her son, and they sent the Kuyate matriarch to Mumania to go tell it. Go tell it to Mumania. Go tell Fata Magan the handsome. Say the Tarawere trip to do was good. Say the ugly maid they brought with them. Say that woman has just born a son. The Kuyate matriarch came forward. Alu Konkon, she said. They replied to her, Konkon Dogoso, come let us eat. But the female bard Tumumania goes to find the king. She does not sit with the old women to eat. She rejects the food until her message is delivered. And so the announcing of the birth of son Jara first, though he was actually born second, causes Fatamagan to designate him as firstborn. The old women then burst out their message of the Berete woman's child, that alas, they were too late. Some just flopped their hands about. I will not hear of this from anyone. I spent a sleepless night. The lids of my eyes are dried out. Bere, 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 bere. But I will not hear of this from anyone. Some just clasped their hands together. What travail it had become. Ha, the old woman had forgotten her message and abandoned it for a meal. Those caught by their cross. That was the first day of battle in the Manden. Pandemonium broke loose. Bokolen. I sing of Biri Biriba. Ah, he who would cultivate, let him cultivate. He who would deal in commerce, let him deal in commerce. Ah, Bemba, war may give to some, my father, although it may not be theirs. War may take from some, although it may not be their own. If there be no war, men of power would not be known. Both women were confined in one hut. Pandemonium broke loose. Bokolen. Saman Berete, the daughter of Tor Magan Berete of the Ruins. Saman Berete, still bloodstained, she came out. What happened then? Oh, messengers, what happened? Oh, messengers, what became of the message? The Guyate matriarch spoke out. Nothing happened at all. I was the first to pronounce myself. Your husband said the first name heard, said he would be the elder, and thus yours became the younger. Old women, Saman Berete cried out. Now you have really reached the limit. I was the first to marry my husband and the first to bear him a son. Now you have made him the younger. You have really reached your limit. She spoke then to her younger co-wife. Oh, lucky Karunga, for you, marriage has turned sweet. A first son birth is a work of old, and yours has become the elder. The infants were bathed. Both were laid beneath a cloth. The grandmother had gone to fetch firewood. Then she quit the firewood fetching place, and she came and left her load of wood. She came into the hut. She cast her eye on the Berete woman, and cast her eye on the Konde woman, and looked the Berete woman over, and looked the Konde woman over. She lifted the edge of the cloth, and examined the child of the Berete woman, and lifted again the edge of the cloth, and examined the child of the Konde woman, from the very top of Sonjara's head to the very tip of his toes, all hair. The old woman went outside. Ha, birth givers, hurrah, she laughed. The little mother has born a lion thief. And thus the old mother gave Sonjara his name. Givers of birth, hurrah, the little mother has born a lion thief. Hurrah, the mother has given birth to a lion thief. Biri Biriba, and thus they say of him, Sonjara, Nare Magan Konate, Simbon, lion born of the cat. This snippet comes from the Epic of Sonjara, a version of the Sondiata epic recounted by a griot or Jeli called Fa Digi Sissoko. And it was recorded on March 9th in 1968 by American linguist Charles S. Bird, who has done extensive work with Malian griots and other performers. Charles Bird worked with Massa Makan Diabati, a descendant of a well-known family of griots, and who is also a writer and scholar. And this is a 3,083-line narrative, which was then translated by John William Johnson, who's an American folklorist, and he worked with a team of Malian scholars. So there are a few things that stand out in this story. First is the fact that the plot, that is one where a messenger stops to eat while another messenger hurries along and delivers their message first with world-changing consequences, is intriguingly similar to the plot of many versions of the story of how death came into the world. And this story of how death came to the world is, I believe, one of the most widely distributed folk tales on the African continent. Now, you'll have to buy my book, The Watkins Book of African Folklore, to find out more about this, because I did a whole section on how death came into the world stories. But I believe there are over 700 versions of this story across the African continent. There is also the fact that the infant Sondiata is covered in hair, which ties to his name, Sondiata, which translates to Sogolon's lion, but also is like interesting because I believe in the story of Jacob and Esau, Esau is also covered in hair. And if you remember in the story from the AmaNdebele, the son who steals the kingship has to cover his body with animal skin to mimic his brother, who is the rightful king and who is hairy. So nice little reversal of the story there, which again I get very intrigued because I can see how some people might read this story and say, hey, this is a story that migrated from the African continent to the Middle East. But my hunch is that these are possibly independently occurring stories that got told and one group recognized in the other, and along the way the stories got blurred. But hey, this is me speculating. I've not done a deep dive into this. Maybe this is something I'll do in the future. Well, if you know the rest of the story, Sondiata doesn't actually become king immediately as his father intended. First, he's crippled by a curse put on him by his stepmother, Sasuma Berete, and then fearing more cruelty at Sasuma's hand after Fatamagan dies, Sondiata's mother takes him and his siblings and they run away from the kingdom. They go into exile. And Sondiata only becomes king much later after overcoming many difficulties and rising in profile under the mentorship of the king of Mema, a nearby kingdom, and improving himself as a warrior and a leader. And then he returns to liberate his people from the sorcerer king, Sumanguru Kante. And this is in fulfillment of a prophecy. So I'll include a link to the full epic in the episode notes as always. And this is just one of many versions of the Sondiata epic. But I'll also link a really great book about the griots and griots of Mali, which is where I read this story first. So I was reading about the griots, the Jelimusows, and then I read this snippet and I was like, oh, this is interesting. So that's what I was trying to remember. And that's why listening to the lovely Mami Diarra singing just cracked this whole thing open for me. So, all right, well, I will see you all next week. Thank you as always for listening. Yango